You probably haven't heard of Warren Smith, but if you have, you probably remember him from this video.
So these guys want to talk about J.K. Rowling? Is that so? What's going on with that? What do you want to know?
Do you still like her work despite her bigoted opinions?
So let's get specific though. Let's define bigoted opinions. What opinions are bigoted? We're going to treat this as a thought experiment. I'm not going to say what's right or wrong or which way to think. The whole point is to learn how to think, not what to think. Is that transphobic to you?
So, to me, no. Stating that sex is real is not transphobic. It's just a fact of life. It exists.
At the beginning of this conversation, you said, given the fact that J.K. Rowling is transphobic, how do you feel about Harry Potter? Now, retroactively looking at that statement, do you think that that was the best way to phrase?
No, I feel like an idiot now.
It's okay though, but this is why we do this, to learn how to think.
So when Elon retweeted this video last February, Warren's channel blew up and a new YouTube commentator was born. So I think the reason that this video is attractive to conservatives is pretty obvious. It communicates a message that they agree with. J.K. Rowling isn't transphobic, and if you think she is, you've probably just heard unsubstantiated rumors, and if you looked into it, you'd realize she wasn't. And even better, it hides this political message behind a thin veneer of objectivity. After all, Warren is just teaching his students about critical thinking. He says so many times during the video. Everyone wants to think that their beliefs are objective, logical, well-reasoned, and anyone who disagrees with them is just irrational, emotional, and just generally not capable of critical thinking. So I got intrigued by Warren's rising star, so I started watching his content, I joined his fan communities, and I even, on occasion, got to talk to Warren directly. So as best as I can, I want to tell the story of Warren's early virality. Following his initial viral video, Warren understandably tried to make something of his online presence. He tried to replicate the success of his original video by seeking out debates in a few ways. One, he had a few debates with his colleague who is a teacher at the special ed school where he taught, but second, he would also try to continue to have debates with the students at the special ed school where he taught. This ultimately led to him getting fired, which I'll come back to later. These videos were doing okay, but Warren was looking for a more reliable source of content and potentially income. Meanwhile, he had just been spending weeks reading fawning comments by conservatives that look like this. This is how all teaching should be done. This is how teaching used to be done. Before woke, this teacher is truly teaching critical thinking. Why don't they teach critical thinking anymore in schools? And I'm afraid to tell you that it went to Warren's head. So at that time, an entrepreneur named WEquil, his actual name, noticed Warren's new fame as a teacher of critical thinking. Joe was making an e-learning homeschooling app of the sort that definitely already exists and in much more fully featured formats. But let me ask you, did those other apps have Warren Smith, expert in critical thinking?
Or this could be not just life-changing for me, but this could lead to, hopefully other educators will start to recognize the potential here. I think they will. I think we're on the cusp of something big.
So I think I'm obligated to say that Joe insists that he is not the CEO of WEquil, and the CEO of WEquil is actually his tween daughter, and that he himself did not write a single line of code. This is true in a sense in that I think that Joe basically paid offshore programmers to write the app. So on one hand, Warren's channel was exploding, and he was regularly posting videos getting tens to hundreds of thousands of views. But Warren's school on WEquil, it being an obscure, poorly featured app, only attracted about 20 active users, most of whom were just weirdos from the internet like myself who were just intrigued by Warren as a new e-celeb. Warren's classes consisted of about 3 or 4 paying students, most of whom were adults, one of whom I think probably just thought Warren was really attractive. Meanwhile, Joe would host these many hours-long Zoom calls with the community talking about how this app was going to change the world, in no small part because of Warren and the kind of special, unique geniuses that he attracted. Joe and Warren were both libertarianish Elon Musk fans. This was around the time that Elon had just bought Twitter. He declared that X was a free speech platform and that anything that was legal would be allowed, which with the benefit of hindsight we know did not happen. So Joe and Warren similarly pronounced that the Warren Smith Secret Scholar Academy would be an absolute free speech zone where anything that was legal would be allowed. But then as soon as one user wrote a post criticizing Joe, the post was taken down and that user was censored. Some users pointed out that it didn't really make sense for a homeschooling community with some users as young as 12 years old to be an absolute free speech zone, but this fell on deaf ears. When Warren was eventually fired from his teaching job, and I'll get back to that, it became clear that he was going to have to make his new online career profitable, and he became increasingly frustrated with the fact that WEquil was not going to get him there. That, combined with an increasingly strained relationship with the over-promising and, in my opinion, kind of emotionally manipulative WEquil, resulted in Warren giving up on WEquil and just spending more of his time making videos for his YouTube channel, and to some extent spending time on his Discord server. Truly, Warren wasted an incredible amount of time in the months following his original viral fame being suckered in by this opportunistic startup dad. But most importantly, let's check out some of Warren's teaching content from the WEquil days. In order to teach a class on critical thinking, Warren drew from his experience studying epistemology and formal logic. Just kidding. Warren was actually a film student who became a high school media studies teacher after his film career mysteriously didn't take off.
Who are you? I wanted to ask you about something that you created a long time ago back at Harvard, the Venus theory.
Yeah, what about it?
You use calculations unlike anything I've ever seen. You defined beauty mathematically. What about the Secret Scholar Society?
Come inside.
I think at this point I have to be a little bit more explicit about the fact that Warren is an absolute moron. It's painfully obvious that Warren's intellectual life is constituted of Asmund Goldstream's political React content and Tim Pool, but most of the heavy lifting is done by the king of philosophers himself, Jordan Peterson. If you ask Warren about politics, religion, or philosophy, he'll tend to reach deep within himself and pull out a half-remembered Jordan Peterson talking point. He's particularly fond of regurgitating Jordan Peterson talking points about archetypes, how we see the world through stories, how postmodernists are wrong because they don't understand stories like he does.
It's true that we make sense of the world through stories because we resonate with the hero's journey, with these with archetypes. That's how we derive morality. It's how it's built within us. That's not a coincidence. That's not a societal construct.
So when Warren came to understand he was the world's foremost critical thinking understander, he set to work putting together a curriculum. But because Warren's only experience was his viral video debating that student that one time, he basically took what happened in that video and tried to codify it into the Warren Smith method. Yes, Warren Smith has his own method for critical thinking. He would often talk about it in somber tones. He says, that's why I have the Warren Smith method. I think that's the importance of the method. Well, I looked to the method. So let's you and I go through the Warren Smith method and see if we can learn how to do some critical thinking. The Warren Smith method for critical thinking. 1. Listen to the claim. Got it. 2. Define the goal. Whose goal? I'm not sure. 3. Identify the reason. The reason for what? I guess the reason for the claim? The reason for the goal? I'm not sure. Then address the goal. Then evaluate the evidence. After you've addressed the goal, for some reason. Okay, the goal is addressed, now we can evaluate the evidence. Then analyze in relation to the reason. Analyze what? I'm not totally sure. But he provides a helpful example, so we can use this example to understand what he means by these things. And this example is, of course, the example from his video with his student. The claim, J.K. Rowling is transphobic. Okay. Define the goal. Identify the basis for the claim. Okay, so that's, I guess, Warren's goal is to identify the basis for the student's claim that J.K. Rowling is transphobic. So that's the goal. Okay, identify the reason to determine if this is a fair characterization. Okay, so I guess the reason is the reason for the goal, not the reason for the claim. Okay, then address the goal. What are you basing that on? His goal is to identify the basis for the claim, so addressing the goal means like doing the thing to accomplish his goal, which means asking the student, what are you basing that on? I guess. Collect the evidence. So the student says, because of these tweets. Okay, and then analyze evidence in relation to the reason. Okay, so before it was just analyze in relation to the reason. Now it's analyze evidence in relation to the reason. So based on these tweets, is this a fair characterization? So analyze evidence in relation to the reason. So that's just saying, based on these tweets, is this a fair characterization? And that's it. That's the end of the method. You ask them that question. Okay. Warren ends this essay that he wrote. We are in a battle for the hearts, and especially the minds of young people. Join my community, and let us discover together the power that lives inside you. Embark on a journey with me, and discover the doors that can open your eyes to the world. Fear not the truth, even if others cannot see. So long as you see the world through the lens of logic, the truth will set you free. So Warren was teaching his classes, and from what I hear, they were not very organized. I hear that Warren would basically ask his students what they think he should be teaching or how they think the class should work. Reading his materials and hearing Warren talk about logic and reason, other users, including myself, urged Warren to maybe look some stuff up in Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy or maybe just Wikipedia, but that wasn't really on Warren's agenda. These days, a conservative influencer is nothing without a cancellation story. Warren's is a slam dunk because he was fired from his high school just for teaching critical thinking, right? At least that's how he's willing to let himself be presented in interviews these days.
I wound up seeing you, as many people did, on those videos that you were making where you were talking to students, just kind of exploring critical thinking. And then Then I found out you got fired for doing that. And I was like, if this isn't an encapsulation of all that is wrong with our current higher education system.
The truth, though, is that the administration at the school where Warren worked told him that if he was going to upload any more videos of him with students in them, that he needed to ask permission from a person in the administration first. But Warren continued to do so without permission from the administration, so they fired him. Warren's interviewers generally don't seem very concerned with the specific details of why Warren was fired, and they just run with the story that Warren was fired because he was teaching students to think critically. And the school would have none of that. It's kind of amazing how irrelevant the actual facts of the matter are. In my opinion, an administration could be more or less forgiving about a teacher making a mistake. But let's be honest about Warren's case for a second. If you're a school and you have a teacher that's been posting videos with students on politically charged subjects that are getting hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, what do you do? The amount of negative attention that you're bringing to the school and potentially into the student's life if things go wrong is pretty high. Personally, I think regardless of the politics involved, the responsible thing for the administration to do would be to put a stop to it. But as far as conservative cancellation stories go, this one will do just fine for Warren Smith. He was fired because he wasn't woke and because he was teaching students critical thinking. Fine, moving on. Let's take a look at some modern Warren videos, and I really want to emphasize just how lazy he is. Warren posts videos that to my eyes look like they should take about 3 hours to make, including finding the content, filming, editing, and posting. I think you'll see what I mean. These masterpieces, once posted, tend to get between 100,000 and 1 million views. You might think that's a pretty sweet gig, but on many occasions Warren has dropped into the Discord server to complain that having to make 3 videos a week is such an arduous and unfair burden, and he'll beg members of the Discord server to drum up content for him by debating him or finding content for him and doing the research for him. When they do propose a topic, Warren says, "Can you look into that for me?" Because Warren has no intention of actually researching the topic himself. I don't think he would know how or where to start. That's because Warren doesn't really research anything. In the past, I've asked Warren, don't you think that you should get a full understanding of a topic before you debate it or make a video about it? But Warren says no, because you can just use logic. This is a through line in Warren's videos. He makes these sort of vague, empty appeals to logic to explain why he's right, but it's not even really clear what he means by logic. For example, in this case, Warren seems to think that logic is when you make a sort of vibes-based guess about a statistic.
If you were to ask the average person who voted for Biden,
Sure.
they didn't vote for Biden.
Okay.
They voted against Trump.
Okay.
Do you disagree?
I'd have to look at exit polls. Is
Okay,
that
so-
true?
He can't even address the logic of that case. I don't know. I'd have to see exit polls to be able to even contend with this logic. It's like,
What I'm asking you is what data do you have that we are no longer feared?
Well, what data is not any data to give. I mean,
Well, then how do you know it is
Well,
the
no,
truth?
but
I know something is true based upon logical reasoning. If it makes logical sense, there's probably a sound argument to be made.
In some cases, he's deeply principally opposed to mind reading, as in when people try to infer that J.K. Rowling is transphobic from the things that she tweets and says.
How do you know what someone believes, though? All we have to judge people is what they do and what they say, not what we think they believe.
No, they're trying to
Trying to be
protect
precise.
themselves from legal action from Candace Owens.
You don't
Or
know that.
potential legal action.
You don't know that. You
What do
can't
mean I
read
don't
someone's
know that?
mind. You can't read someone's mind.
But in other cases, he's happy to speculate wildly about why a person is saying what they're saying or what they truly think, as long as he specifies that he is using logic to get to that conclusion.
Destiny knows that he is visibly shaking. You can see it. Look at the chair. It shows vibrations. Look at his arms. This shows that beneath his rationalization, his subconscious knows that something is off. You can feel it in your words when you're not on firm footing. God, look at Russell Brand's face here. It's like he can feel it. He knows. It's like he can feel that he's gotten this wrong.
Warren seems to mostly get the content for his videos from other React streamers who are reacting to that content. You can tell because he sometimes intentionally, accidentally includes footage of the content streamer that he farmed the content from in his own video.
I just meant it as an acknowledgement, as what crimes have done in the past.
She cried?
And then you came and attacked me.
So in the middle of that clip was LFR Jojo, a conservative React streamer, where Warren got the content from. In this clip, you can see he just ripped the content straight from an Asmongold stream. And of course, for a critical thinking expert, Warren's videos do not seem to contain much critical thinking. The average Warren video mostly consists of showing political rage bait slop clips. Often they're just anti-SJW highlights from years and years ago.
This interview between Kathy Newman and Jordan Peterson is a masterclass in trap questions and how to evade them.
And then he just restates what happens in the clip as if it's insightful commentary. Literally, most of the time Warren cuts to himself talking, he just says exactly what happened in the clip that you just saw. He often just repeats what the person in the clip just said, and if it's a person on the left, he repeats it in stupid person voice.
Let me just tell you that we are going to do everything we can.
See how unspecific that language is? We're going to do everything we can. It's
slashing regulations, expediting everything.
See how broad that is? Expediting everything. Okay, can we get a little bit more specific?
So that people can begin the process right away. You know, we have the Disaster Recovery Center on Pico and Westwood.
Oh, great. Well, we have a disaster recovery center.
We have building and safety there. People are already contacting the local agencies.
Oh, they're contacting the local agencies already. It's only been, what, a week, 2 weeks?
We're bringing our city departments together so that people don't get caught.
They're bringing the different departments together so that people don't get caught.
Despite the fact that Warren mostly just restates what happens in the video, he somehow manages to give you absolutely no context for what is happening. What even is the topic? What are the arguments that the parties are making? Who are these people? The feeling of watching a Warren video is extremely disorienting. Some of Warren's videos seem to start with him in the middle of a sentence.
And I do not think that any of this has been an accident as far as the performance we saw in the appearance before Congress.
100% of the time, you would be better off just watching the original content Warren is talking about. And of course, Warren is an idiot, so he doesn't really know what constitutes a good or bad argument. Warren's rule seems to be, if this person agrees with me, they can do no wrong. That includes yelling.
Give me some fucking data. Stop squinting at me and saying the prosecutors did a thing. You didn't know. You didn't read it. You didn't read the court papers. All you know is the fascist machine state told you he should be in prison, and you're saying yes to them.
Luke Beasley just gets torpedoed by Tim Pool.
Making straightforwardly fallacious arguments.
Do you think you have privilege over me?
Yes.
Cordy, because of your skin color, you are privileged over another person. Well, obviously, inherently, that is racist.
Okay, you're saying that your grandparents had privilege over me?
They had privilege over yours.
No, they didn't. You didn't know my parents. You didn't know my people, so you don't know that.
That's a smart move. Do you think you have privilege over me?
Just insulting people.
You're crazy. You're insane. Shut up, boy. She's speaking.
I don't know who this guy is, but he's good. Shut up, boy. She's speaking.
Saying anything, whether it's true or not, because Warren's not going to look up whether it's true.
And what you are saying is a lie.
That you said it. It's.
No, I did not. I never continued.
Okay.
I never ever.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to enter into the record when Mr. Kennedy said that. I reclaim my time.
Something about this rings bullshit.
Meanwhile, Warren's dialectical standards for someone who disagrees with him are suddenly very strict. David Pakman not knowing a statistic off the top of his head? Inexcusable.
If this is your space, what's your podcast about?
What is it about?
What's your show about?
News and politics?
You should know this stuff.
He calls it out right to David Pakman's face.
A girl breaking down in tears because of the stress of having a public argument in front of hundreds of people? This is proof of her low moral character.
So that is why I was able to... Yes!
You're crazy. You're insane. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow, so okay, her voice is shaking. She's not winning logically, so she's feeling it, and she's probably going to go emotional because that's just how these cookies crumble.
Both Gavin Newsom and Trump hugging each other? Huh, a transparent, disingenuous ploy by Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom, right off the airplane. An awkward moment. I think Trump can see right through this.
Warren favors body language analysis. I think he probably watched a bunch of Amber Heard trial commentary, and he likes to point out how Democrats' facial expressions or movements reveal the weakness of their stances, or how they know they're secretly lying.
Destiny knows that he is visibly shaking. Beneath his rationalization, his subconscious knows that something is off. Elizabeth Warren comes out and thinks that she's got him cornered.
Quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
So you could see Elizabeth Warren's face there. She's just like, recover, recover, recover.
Warren always has one argument in his back pocket when it's time to pull out the big guns. Whenever one of the bad guys criticizes something that one of the good guys says, Warren will always say, but what is the alternative? Banning them from saying it? Making it illegal? This is almost always a non sequitur, since criticizing something that someone else says is itself a speech act. Is Warren proposing we ban them from criticizing? At times it seems like Warren literally doesn't understand the distinction between right and wrong and legal and illegal. Whenever one of Warren's good guys like J.K. Rowling is criticized for her views, he'll respond, "It's her free speech to say that." I personally have tried to explain to him why this doesn't make sense, but I honestly don't think he's capable of understanding. I urge you to just go check out a couple recent Warren Smith videos. They are, without a doubt, some of the most low-effort, incompetent, shameless, brain-rot clickbait I've ever seen. And yet Warren seems to maintain that this channel is about thinking critically and being objective. Personally, I think he's being at least partially sincere. This is what Warren thinks critical thinking is because it's what he watches on YouTube. This is what Jordan Peterson tells him. You are smart and rational because you agree with me. Democrats are evil, stupid, and irrational, and this can just be deduced through logic. And now, since I started making this video, Warren has had his biggest break yet. He got invited on the Joe Rogan podcast. On the podcast, he tried to bring up some smart-sounding things and tried to insert some catchphrases he's trying to make happen.
His right arm is essentially completely useless. It just stays like that. It doesn't move anymore.
Power stories.
And that's what this is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Power story.
Yeah, the power story.
Otherwise, Warren usually does not have much to say, and Joe Rogan is happy to take over and fill the 3 hours recycling rants about how much he hates the Democrats. But a Joe Rogan appearance is a Joe Rogan appearance. This is the kind of content that you have to make to get invited on the world's most viewed political media, Joe Rogan. Take a look at the comments under Warren's video. As stupid as I think Warren is, as incompetent, shameless, and obviously tribal his videos are, hundreds of thousands of viewers think that he is a beacon of rationality. And every day, Warren is reading these comments and reaffirming his own belief that he is a true critical thinker. Not only are Warren's videos incredibly lazy, but he seems barely able to work a computer. He struggles terribly using basic Discord functionality. He needed someone to help him set up a Patreon. Despite the fact that Warren's initial fame came from a video where he talks about J.K. Rowling and transphobia, and despite the fact that since then he's been in multiple discussions about whether J.K. Rowling is transphobic, he has not once gone to look at any of the other tweets that people may be referring to when they say that J.K. Rowling is transphobic. Not once. And yet, he cannot stop succeeding. His channel cannot stop growing. And that is why I am losing faith in humanity. This is one of my first attempts at doing a little talking head video, but one of the things that I have done a lot of is following Brett Weinstein's YouTube channel over time and picking out clips of Brett Weinstein revealing slowly over time how batshit insane he is. I thought, I understand why people are taken in by Brett Weinstein. He sounds really specialized and educated. He knows how to talk using a superficially scientific language, and he has a PhD. Some people don't know how to distinguish him from an actually trustworthy person, so I thought maybe I can help. But it turns out I was wrong. You don't have to be Brett Weinstein to fool people into thinking that you're a genius. You can be one of the most transparently stupid people I've ever seen or interacted with, and hundreds of thousands of people will still watch your videos and leave comments saying that you're a genius, a true critical thinker. So the problem is not Brett. The problem is that people who are watching right-wing content online are so stupid that they look up to Warren Smith, and that is a terrifying thing to think about.
Is the Venus theory possible?
What?
Do you think it's possible for mathematics to predict human behavior?
Oh, well, to an extent. I mean, to an extent.
How did you learn that equation?
I don't really remember.
Did you write this equation?
The magician did. I used what he taught me to go to Harvard. When he died, he left me the secret to his tricks. But they weren't tricks. For example, I can look at you and see. You're not really a student at Harvard.